Hi everyone, my name is Liz Truitt and I'm a graduating senior at Arizona State University. Today I'll be taking you through my capstone presentation for the Technical Communications program. Just a quick note on something you may notice. My background is in animal welfare, so you'll see that many of my projects have a basis in that industry. Welcome, and I hope you enjoy. Successful students need to prove their proficiency in 4 distinct outcomes of the Technical Communications program. Those outcomes include rhetorical knowledge, critical thinking, reading and writing, processes, and knowledge of conventions. I chose this graphic specifically because I think the puzzle pieces are a good representation of how the outcomes fit together to create a really well-rounded communicator. So it's no surprise that most of the projects we've produced for this program encompass more than just one outcome. In fact, most of our accomplishments should be able to simultaneously demonstrate most, if not all, of the outcomes. That said, I'll highlight some of my favorite projects and talk about how these particular projects display my ability to meet the program outcomes. I'll start by looking at the rhetorical knowledge outcome. When we talk about rhetorical knowledge, what comes to my mind is another phrase, situational awareness. And what that means for a technical communicator is the ability to define the purpose of a document and then, with an acute awareness of audience and context needs, develop appropriate content in the appropriate format. I've chosen 3 projects to display my grasp of rhetorical knowledge. My blog, Saving Lives 9 at a Time, was designed during TWC 403, Writing for Professional Publication. In it, I strike a casual narrative tone as I introduce my audience to different issues I see in the animal welfare world. Aimed at a pet-loving audience that's interested in both a good story and a good piece of advice, my goal was to educate, inform, and entertain, trying to create memorable images to help my message stick. I considered several factors while creating this. I wanted a clean layout that people with varying levels of eyesight could see. I wanted to keep each post fairly short because audience attention spans for online content are fleeting. I had to make sure my links worked to take my audience to more information if they wanted it. And of course, I needed to make sure I presented accurate information so I never misled my audience. I created another blog, Revise, 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 for a different class, TWC 301, Principles of Multimedia. While my tone in this blog is similarly casual and friendly, the point of this blog and the audience needs are completely different. The point of this blog is to share tips and resources with new writers-to-be, like me. Instead of trying to create memorable scenes for my audience to reflect upon, I'm trying to create a single place for new writers to track down some resources. Again, layout was important, and I like to reflect a clean, crisp style in my online presence. Information has to be easy to find here, and the uncluttered page reflects the organization that a new writer needs. The final project I've chosen to highlight for the rhetorical knowledge outcome is this edited report addressed to President Coolidge, created for TWC 431, Technical Editing. From the original draft provided for us, I chose my edits very carefully. Obviously, the needs of my audience, the President, are critical, and I consider both format and content. Even time came into consideration, since the President doesn't have extra time to fish through a single document for details. Every decision I made in this edit, from syntax to headings to footnotes, was made with both my audience needs and the situational needs in mind. The next outcome I'll look at is critical thinking, reading, and writing. I actually can't think of a single project throughout this program that doesn't encompass the ability to think critically. Every piece of writing, every reading assignment, even every discussion group has required us to fine-tune our ability to evaluate and analyze content as well as context, from micro levels all the way to global levels. In fact, as simple as it sounds, thinking critically is part of what's kept me interested in this program all along. It's the absolute necessity to consider so many aspects for every project we do. The first project I'll look at was to create an event logo for TWC 411, Principles of Visual Communication. The event I chose to design for was the Urban Dare, a scavenger hunt race that goes from city to city every year. Participants have to solve clues and complete dares while racing against other teams. It's an event I've taken part in many times. My direct involvement in this event gave me real insight into who my audience was going to be. Me. So I set out to design a logo using Adobe Illustrator that captured the fun and mystery of the event, but still looked hip enough that I'd wear a t-shirt sporting the logo. I created a magnifying glass to play off societal assumptions of clue solving. After all, who doesn't think of Sherlock Holmes when they see a magnifying glass? And I created a bright trail for my racing figure to follow through a maze of city blocks. Using the principles of color learned in class, I stuck with reds, yellows, and oranges to capture the energy of the race against a light gray, street-colored, urban-feeling background. Another consideration for this logo was that it had to be easily reproducible. I had to think from a marketing viewpoint about t-shirts and other merchandise related to the event. There had to be elements to this logo that could be pulled out and used independently. I carried these independent elements, like the runner, the red arrow, and the magnifying glass, onto different projects for this class, like this poster for the event. This project is an example of how, with very few words but a lot of thought, I was able to create a feeling and a concept that captured the essence of an event. On the other end of the spectrum is a literature review created for TWC 451, Copyright and Intellectual Property. For this review, I analyzed the changing roles of publishers and authors in contract negotiations in light of digital technology. I had to research the history of these relationships, as well as current trends and threats to the industry's old way of doing things. I used a variety of sources, including some from online databases, landmark court cases, and reputable websites. Once my information was gathered, I had to bring it all together into a coherent document that reflected my thesis. Now I'll move on to the process's outcome. The process of creating any good project is summed up in the title of the blog I mentioned earlier. Revise, revise, revise. Throughout this program, I've learned not only the fine art of revision, but also the importance of time management. Giving and receiving critiques is a major part of this program, and I've learned to appreciate and evaluate the input from both my peers and professors on our many, many drafts. So let's take a look at a few projects. For TWC 443, Proposal Writing, I wrote a proposal for disaster relief funding. By creating outlines, storyboards, an audience analysis, and a graphic summary, I was able to research and document the many aspects that I needed for the proposal. All this work of planning and revision really demonstrated my ability to strategize and draft to come up with a successful proposal. For TWC 301, Principles of Multimedia, I created a set of technical instructions for a not-so-technical art project for kids. My process started with designing and trying my procedure to figure out the steps. Then I set about writing and designing my instructions, settling on a layout that was simple and user-friendly. A key aspect of this project was sticking to deadlines. I worked with a trusted reader to review and test my instructions, so I had to build time into my schedule for the instructions to go back and forth between us, leaving enough time at the end for final revisions. During TWC 401, Principles of Technical Communications, I prepared a partial report. This assignment really reflected a real-world scenario in which a coworker is absent and his work must be finished by someone else. I had to organize the existing data and format the report. I had to respect the integrity of the original author's work while making sure the final document was complete and professional. This collaboration between coworkers is pretty common in the workplace, so it was an important assignment and lesson in working with others. The final outcome I'll look at is the knowledge of conventions. This program has really brought home the importance of knowing the standard formats for different genres. From simple one-page documents to longer technical reports, we learned how using the right format can mean the difference between a casual draft and a professional document. So let's check out a couple examples. We developed a number of memos throughout this program. This one, for TWC 301, Principles of Multimedia, displays not only my grasp of a memo format, but also my recognition for the use of an appropriate professional tone. Headers are used correctly, and all the pertinent information is mentioned at the beginning of the memo. Details, including visual aids, follow later to help my audience understand my ideas. In this proposal, written for TWC 401, Principles of Technical Communication, I included all aspects for a successful proposal and combined them with striking images. My proposal included easy-to-identify headings outlining the problem, the solution, the cost, and the outcome. I struck a professional tone that highlighted my successful business plan and included powerful images to increase its impact. I played with the format a little, finding that a two-column approach to my text made a more pleasing document to read in this case, making it easier for my audience to concentrate on the message. Included in this proposal was a transmittal letter. This letter follows the standard printed letter format that we perfected throughout this program and includes the letterhead of the class's fictional consulting company. My favorite class, TWC 431, Principles of Technical Editing, really drove home the need to know not only conventions of writing and formatting, but also word processing software. In this class, I really felt like I'd found my niche as I honed my editing skills in these copy editing assignments, editing for format, grammar, syntax, spelling, you name it. Whether using handwritten or computer-aided editing marks, I really learned the meaning of the phrase detail-oriented. I think the topic of editing is a good way to wrap up this presentation, since editing, by its nature, requires a thorough knowledge of all the program outcomes, rhetorical knowledge, critical thinking, processes, and of course, knowledge of conventions. I'd like to say thank you to my professors and my peers for all the help, guidance, and support that I've received throughout my time in this program. I'd also like to thank my family and friends for their patience with me as I've disappeared into the land of homework for the past year and a half. In addition to meeting the goals of the program outcomes, I'm much less intimidated by new technology. In fact, I put this presentation together using Camtasia software that a month ago I'd never heard of, and 2 years ago I never would have attempted to learn. And so, with your permission, I'll take my new knowledge and my new skills and start a new career. Thank you for watching.